to the staff.
All right, because I need to.
You're on.
Yeah, I got it. Then I need to send it to the. So
Yep.
all right, morning, everybody. So, yeah, sorry for the delays for those in the classrooms. Hopefully, everybody's logged on. Technical difficulties. Could not get, just tell you, could not get the camera and the microphone to work here. So I just, maybe I'm hesitating a little bit here because I just sent a new link out to all the students as well, so that our off-campus students can join on. I had many of them asking. So yeah, so glad to see everybody today. Looking forward to this chapel. We still have plenty of time for it. Mr. G was sharing a little bit of yesterday with me on some of the things he wants to talk about. Miracles of Christmas, or Christmas miracles, and I am really looking forward to it. And as we all love this Christmas season, let me pray, and then we'll bring Mr. Guerra. Father, I thank you for this day. I even thank you for the technical difficulties, and I thank you that we did get this working right now. And I just pray for Mr. G as he delivers this talk this morning. I know he's put a lot of thought into it, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say. May our hearts be stirred for what you have for us today. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Mr. Guerra, welcome.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you guys, or at least this big camera looking at me. Okay, and there's some students that are here, but most of you guys are right out there. Anyway, my favorite. I'm not a preacher so much. I love to tell stories, as anybody in my class can tell you. And sometimes I birdwalk. But anyways, I love stories. That's what makes history so interesting to me. And so I'm just going to share with you a lot of different stories and different things. I called it Miracles at Christmas, and I love the Christmas season as well. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I over-decorate my house, and I'm the only one there. So, and I think sometimes the sad fact about miracles is that a lot of people stop believing in them. We can't see them, we can't explain them, we can't understand them. We pray for them, we want them, we hope that they come, but we can't quantify them. We can't tell the when, the how, or the why, or way. We also, when we start thinking that we can explain a miracle, then it must not be a miracle. But I really believe, I want to believe in miracles all the time. And in fact, in Mark 9:24, my students know this is one of my favorite verses, is where there's a father who his son is possessed by demons. They bring him to Jesus, to the disciples. His disciples can't heal his son, and so they bring him to Jesus, and Jesus looks at the father and says, "Hey, do you think I can heal him?" And the father says, "Yes, I believe. Now help my unbelief." And I pray that as we look at this, that you kind of have that feeling, like, I want to believe in miracles, even though in our day and age, everybody's out there saying that miracles don't happen and don't take place, especially at Christmas time. Why are miracles, especially at Christmas time, why are they we struggle with that? And one reason we do struggle with miracles is we can't predict them. And a lot of people say, well, this person got a miracle, I didn't get a miracle. Why is that? Well, I'm just going to tell you, I would love to explore that with you. But that's a lifetime of study. And so we're going to move on from there. Because we do see miracles. A lot of people at the school are testaments to miracles that have happened in their lives. And so there is a larger question about why sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't. But that's something different than we're talking about today. So today we're moving on. And so the first thing I want to ask you is, have you ever had a miracle in your life? Have you seen a miracle? Have you been part of a miracle? And my challenge of anything is to expect a miracle or allow yourself to be used as a miracle. And I'll explain that more, especially at Christmas. And some of the things that dilute and diminish the power of miracles is the fact that we give them narratives and false narratives. Like, for example, the virgin birth, okay, of Jesus. I totally believe in that. However, people in the world start to doubt it and they start to use it in stories. Like, one of the saddest things about Star Wars is the fact that Anakin Skywalker was a virgin birth. And I'm like, come on, because it diminishes, it dilutes the truth of Christ's birth, is when we play with it and novelize it. And Hallmark Channel movies, my students, they at least the ones last year, the seniors, they knew I talked about it. I love Hallmark movies, and they kind of dilute the miracles, because you have they're all very similar. You have the person that's too busy and or maybe not too busy, they're jaded, and then they meet this person, they're kind of like not really in love, and they kind of don't like each other, or they're jilted, and this whole long thing, and through working for Christmas, they kind of come and they start to fall in love with each other. But then there's either this guy or this girl that is drawing them away, or there's some decision they have to make in their life that cuts them down, and then or that breaks them apart. And then eventually they meet up on Christmas Eve, and like, I'm so sorry, it's not what you thought, or that's not whatever, or I really love you. And then suddenly they kiss and it starts snowing. Okay, and they're like, oh, it's a miracle of Christmas. And that really, in us, we start to laugh at those things. We make fun of those things, and so part of that, it makes us jaded towards miracles. And we tend to believe that miracles don't happen because we see them in movies and books and TVs. And I love a good Christian novel, but Christian novelists love to put miracles in there, and they're like huge and enormous, and so we see them portrayed in not real life, and so it's hard to see them in real life. But I'm going to tell you that miracles do happen, and they do happen at Christmas time. Okay, and for example, I'm going to give you an example. How many of you guys think that if Taylor Swift went over to Afghanistan and started singing her new Christmas album, how many guys would think that the war would stop? I mean, that seems ridiculous, doesn't it? Yeah. But something like that happened. It really did. In World War I, everybody thought the war would be over, one big battle. The soldiers would be home by Christmas. They're sitting in their trenches. It's dirty. It's filthy. There's big animals that are eating the dead. There's people, that were sinking in mud. They've seen a lot more horror than they've ever wanted to see. And at Christmas time, the men were in their trenches 100 yards away from the enemy, and they started celebrating what little Christmas they could have. And this is documented. This has really happened. And at one point, I don't know who started first, someone started singing Silent Night. Now, Silent Night is originally a German song, but it has English words, it has French lyrics. And so people started singing Silent Night, and they could hear someone over on the other side singing Silent Night, and someone over there. And finally, the first documented Christmas truce is a German took a Christmas tree, because the German soldiers all got Christmas trees, and he walks across no man's land, and goes to the British, and the British accept him. And the entire time he's singing Silent Night. Okay, that never happened in the war. And in fact, at that time, this happened several times. A song, Christmas carols, the spirit of Christmas, stopped fighting. It was so many truces, and they would stop fighting. They get together in no man's land, play soccer, and have fun. And there were so many accounts that this happened, that even in World War II, American forces purposely made random attacks just to keep the soldiers from celebrating Christmas with the German soldiers. But literally, a Christmas carol stopped a war. Okay, and then I want to tell you about another miracle. This is so that's one well documented. And this one happened to a friend of mine. And you know how a lot of people say, well, I had a miracle. This friend and my brother's friend and my mother's cousins, uncles, nephews, brothers, sister-in-laws, heard it from them. Okay, this actually happened to one of my best friends. She regularly for our church organizes Christmas cards to veterans. And so one year she went, passed out Christmas cards, no big deal. The next year, she was at a grocery store, and she was talking with the pastor on the phone about what they needed to do for the Christmas cards, and was explaining what church, and someone asked something or whatever, and I forget exactly all the circumstances, but this gentleman behind her in the grocery line said, "You're from Remedy Church?" She said, "Yes." "Did you pass out this Christmas card?" He pulls the Christmas card out of his wallet, and it has her name on it. And he says, "I was in the low point. I was struggling with cancer. And I was at this point where I just lost all hope. I didn't want my family to visit or whatever, and you brought me this card, and it changed my life. And it was a year later. He says, now I'm struggling with cancer. I mean, I'm pretty much almost cancer free and everything like that. But this card gave me hope. I'm involved in church. I'm going, and just from someone, my friends, I never thought that this would be the impact we would make. We just went and passed out Christmas cards to be nice. And this man needed a miracle and she didn't know it. And she gave him a Christmas card that changed his life. So miracles do happen. And we can't always explain the random chances and the mathematical reasoning that would bring us together at that very moment to be that person's thing. Even if I can explain it, the odds, no one in Las Vegas would bet on it. And that is also a miracle. Sometimes we think miracles are suddenly, something I lost popping up, somebody lost in a river showing up at my house, those kind of things. But there may not be a logical explanation, or there may be a logical explanation. But the point is, someone received something they needed, and it wasn't expected. And God used people. I'm like, what are the odds that my friend Harmony would be standing in the grocery store at the exact same moment the person behind her is the person that got the Christmas card? A lot of times when I think of Christmas miracles, I also think of the story of Christmas Carol. And I'm going to use Ebenezer Scrooge a little bit for illustration purposes. If you know the story of the Christmas Carol, it is the most remade story in the world. They've made TV shows, movies, everything. But Christmas Carol, this Ebenezer Scrooge is a greedy jerk who eventually ghosts come and tell him what wrong he's done, and it changes his life. And he goes and starts to change, and he becomes a better person from it. Now, this is one of the stories that I tell you. They kind of dilute the belief in miracles because they make this fantasy of miracles. But at the same time, there is something we can learn from that. My world history students learned that this is not. This is more about industrialization in England than actually Christmas. He's struggling, and Charles Dickens, who wrote it, was looking at how he can help people look at the world differently and help people. And so that was the whole point. So Ebenezer Scrooge needed a miracle, received a miracle, and then he turned around and became a miracle for other people. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, I need a miracle right now. I need a miracle in my life. And it's not happening. I don't understand God. And the only thing I can say is be patient. Be expecting. God knows what you need. He won't forget you. Okay? And just because it doesn't happen the way you see it or the way you think about it, it doesn't mean that God is not listening or God is not there and God is not wanting to work. My favorite story in the Bible, one of my favorite stories in the Bible is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They go before, if you guys know the story, they're thrown in the fire. Jesus is there with them. They get out of the fire, like, oh my goodness. Okay, miracle, right? Before that happened, they're called before Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, I'm going to throw you in the fire. And they said, okay. But I believe, it says, if you throw us in the burning furnace, the God we serve is able and to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from, but even if he does not, we want you to know we're not going to serve you. So essentially they're saying this, I know that God can heal us and protect us and give us a miracle, but if he doesn't, it doesn't mean he's not God. I'm still not going to bow to you. And we see that time and time in the Bible with Joseph, who was sent off into Egypt, not expecting anything, and became vice pharaoh. God does not forget you, even when sometimes it seems like the miracle isn't coming. But it doesn't mean he isn't God and he isn't thinking of you. He is actively trying to get to you, or he has this plan that we may never understand. But here's the point. If you are needing a miracle, you might need to be proactive in being a miracle for someone else. You need to pull yourself up so God can use you. You need to pull yourself together. So you need to be in the Word. You need to be reading your Bible, praying, so that God can allow you to be used by someone else. Allow you to be used to touch someone else's life. Scrooge is an illustration of this. It says at the end of the book, Scrooge is better than his word. He did it all, which meaning he changed his life. And he became a second father, became a good friend, a good master, as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. And at the very end, it says, it is said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possess that knowledge, may that be true of us. So Obviously, we remember Scrooge for the worst things he did. But at the same time, as at the end of the book, Charles Dickens is saying that no, Scrooge changed. And how many people have known people who, when God got in their life, they changed? And where did that happen? It's because at some point they received some miracle, some person that intervened in their life that changed their perspective. At Christmas time, people are wanting to know about God. We spend time learning about God. We watch movies. People go to church to learn about God. But at Christmas time as well, we actually kind of all act like spoiled brats sometimes. I want to get this for Christmas. I want to do this for Christmas. I don't want to, don't bother me with your life for Christmas. I want to go see Christmas lights. I want to make cookies. And we get caught up in the season. And especially this year in 2020, how many of you guys have found your life is so focused on what you do at home because you can't go randomly hang out with friends like you used to? You can't go to the movies. You can't just jump in a car and go play miniature golf or do something, laser tag, whatever. A lot of your life is stuck at home because of the virus, because of quarantine. And so we're even more focused in ourselves and what takes care of us. Can't go to dinner, or if we do, you can't really go hang out with my friends. I find that the same thing. I'm not that you're stuck at home. So my question is there a way that even if you need a miracle, stop and ask yourself, is there a way I can be used by God in this Christmas season? There was a server I met recently at a restaurant where she said, I was homeless for a long time, but God changed my perspective. And she said, I didn't want to at first, but my son and I felt guilty. We wanted to go help other people because we had been homeless, to go help other homeless. She says, now I can't stop going. Every Saturday, they're out feeding homeless. They make lunches and go out. And that's just kind of what I'm talking about, is stop and think, what can you do for someone else? How can God use you? And this is illustrating the Christmas story. What if the shepherds did not want to go because, their Netflix show was on? Or what if the Magi didn't want to travel to see Jesus because, they couldn't get reception in the middle of the desert? So maybe, why did God even need them? I don't know. Maybe Mary needed confirmation that this was the Messiah, or Joseph needed confirmation that this was something he was supposed to do. This was not his son, by the way. He was using it for God. But God used the shepherds and the Magi to be used as a miracle. And in fact, 8 days later, after the Christmas story, after the nativity, they go to name Jesus, do all the religious things they're supposed to do for the baby, and two people show up out of the blue and give blessings on them. One was Simeon, who had been told by God he would not die until the Messiah come. And that morning he woke up and felt, I just got to go to the temple. And when he went to the temple, he looked at Jesus and knew that was the Messiah. And he blessed Mary and Joseph. The same thing was an old woman who had been married for a few years and her husband had died. And she was in the temple all day praying. And then she turns around and there is Jesus. And she knows that is the Messiah. And she goes and prophesies over him. God uses people who we don't think are as important, to change people's lives. So there are times we need the miracle, and there are times God uses us to be a miracle. David, in Samuel 22, was running from Saul. His life was all a mess, and he goes and hides out in a cave. You know what God sends him? God sends him people worse off than he was. Okay? So he wanted a miracle from God. God, make this stop. And instead, what he gets is a whole bunch of people that are worse off than him, and he becomes their leader. So oftentimes God is going to use you when you need something the most. God is going to use you to touch other people. Totally strange and weird, but that's the way God uses us, and that's the way God influences us. No matter how bad you're hurting, God may need you to act for him. Christmas is a time when the world, whether they like to acknowledge it or not, looks to God because they have to acknowledge that it's based upon Jesus' birth. People are more open to the gospel during this season. So maybe there's someone out there waiting for a little push towards God. So if you are feeling like, hey, I could do something, here's one thing I want to caution you with. Don't bring your worst to God. Okay? Malachi 1, he talks about people coming to bring sacrifices to the Lord, like the animals, right? And they show up with blind animals. They show up with diseased animals. People thought, well, it's going to die anyway. Might as well give it to God. God knows. God wants your best. He commands that. And yet sometimes when you're giving food to the poor, you're like, well, this sandwich, I ate half of it. Or clothes. How many guys give ripped up clothes to the poor? How many guys give holy shoes to the poor? I mean, think about that. You're not giving your best. You don't give your brand new pair of jeans. I'm challenged by that every time I start to pull stuff out of my closet. Because I'm like, oh my goodness, is this the best thing I can give to God? And sometimes I feel like I got to just go out and buy new clothes for someone. Because that's giving your best to God. If you give God your hand-me-downs, you're not really giving to God. In 2 Samuel, David said this. When God told him to buy this land and create an altar, he said, and he went to this guy and said, I need to buy your land for God. And the guy said, oh, I'll give it to you for God. And David said, I can't give a sacrifice to God that cost me nothing. So if you're going to be a witness or a miracle this Christmas, you got to stop and think, what is it going to cost me? And I would challenge you to let it cost you something, to make it cost you. It might be less time playing Call of Duty. It might be less time on TikTok. It might be less time sleeping, which is very hard for us, all of us. Okay, those in the grand scheme of things are really minor things. They're not going to last the test of time. But what can you do? In this season where people are stuck at home, some of your friends you haven't seen since the spring. And I know people that, especially people, how many guys, I'm sure half of you guys have not seen your grandparents in a long time. And there's people that are senior centers that have not, they don't receive any visitors because of the COVID laws. What can you do something for them? Can you send them a message? Can you send something to a friend who's been stuck at home, whose parents might need them because of whoever's at home might need to take the quarantine more seriously, or more strictly than you and your family? That might be what you need to do. Can you mail out special messages to your grandparents to make sure they know that you love them and you're thinking about them? Can you talk to your pastor and find people that are stuck at home, older people or sickly people or people that have COVID that need something? Can you send them a note or encouragement? Can you drop off surprises at people's houses, especially those who you know are lonely? Is there a single person in your church that doesn't have any family? Can you send them something just to say hi? Can you clean out your closet and give some of your clothes that you're not wearing that are in good shape to people that need it? My friend once told me that she was reluctant to get rid of her dad's clothes, something she held on to. She didn't want to get rid of it. I felt the same way. My dad had this big old chair, and it still gets me teared up a little bit when I think about it. And I kept it for a long time, and the chair broke, and it wouldn't sit right. And finally, I got rid of it. I pulled it out, and I brought it out. And the trash company pulled up while I was still out there, and they took the chair, they threw it in, and they crushed it right in front of me. I was like, oh, wait, that's my dad's chair. But this woman was saying that she had these coats for her dad that she was holding on to. She finally said, I need to give them. And it was Christmas time, and she gave them out. And a week later, she saw someone homeless walking down the street with her dad's coat on. And she thought, at first she was like, wait. And then she thought, you know what? Isn't that a better place for it to be than hanging in my closet, gathering dust? Also, when I used to work at a low-income school, those kids would come after Christmas with slightly used toys that were bought at the thrift store. So don't just throw things out because you're done with it. Maybe give it to someone that they could use and find different things. Can you help the homeless during the holiday season? Can you go work at a soup kitchen? Can you help bring stuff? Can you reach out to someone who's hurting during Christmas, especially in this horrible year that has taken a lot from us? And can you reach out and touch someone's life this Christmas and change their life? St. Francis of Assisi, it may seem impossible to you, but St. Francis of Assisi said, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you've done the impossible. And so the last thought I want to leave with you is, especially at Christmas time, our churches don't do as much at Christmas time than when I was a kid and even farther back. And some of that was because we forgot to find out why it's special. Christmas is about Santa Claus, the Christmas tree, and we forget that. We say, oh yeah, it's about Jesus too. Okay, we pull out our nativity and we're good. In Jewish Passover celebrations, there's one thing they always do. They stop and they say, why is this day any different? Why should this day be something different? And I'm saying that to you. why is this day, why is this season different? And can you make it different by touching someone else's life, being a miracle in their life? Can you be that person like my friend Harmony, who gave a Christmas card to someone not expecting anything and found out it changed their life? And while we remember Scrooge for the worst things he did, at the end, will they remember you for the best things you did? And that's kind of the thing. I mean, we could all be there, but I just want to challenge you. Make your lives count this Christmas. Make a miracle in someone's life. So anyway, that's all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Guerra. I know that challenged me. It's so easy at Christmas time to think about myself and think about my family and the people that are close to me, but realizing I can impact so many more lives. And so I trust that you take that to heart as well. So glad we got this YouTube thing up and running today so we could do this. So we'll take a little break here and we'll report to our third period classes on time, which is on the board here. Yeah, at 10:05. So have a great rest of your day. Blessings.
Thank you, sir.